On June 18th, 2021, 3 years ago, I uploaded my very first video to YouTube. It was a review of Mashiro no Oto, or Those Snow White Notes, an anime that had just finished airing in the spring 2021 season. I wasn't even sure at the time whether uploading that was a good idea or not. The video that I had created was very badly edited in Windows Movie Maker, and I was recording on a pretty bad headset microphone, which, while it was fine for interacting with people over Discord, didn't necessarily translate to good recording. At the encouragement of a few people, though, I was ultimately compelled to upload it. What I didn't anticipate to the extent that it actually happened was just how much fun I had not only in creating that script and that video in the first place, but also in sharing it with a wider audience. It was a very, very small step into a large YouTube ocean, but nevertheless, it was my step. After that, I started making videos more frequently, and by the time June 2022 rolled around, my 1 year anniversary took place, and I had 50 videos uploaded. But that gradually started waning in the eve of that first year. I noticed that I wasn't really thrilled with anything that I had uploaded in that first year. It wasn't as though I was suddenly ashamed of what I had done, but it simply stopped being fulfilling to look back and think about. Talking about anime in such a plain but uninspiring way may have been alright for getting started, but it burned through its half-life. I had a moment where I metaphorically looked at myself in the mirror and said, "You can keep doing what you're doing, but I know that you're not completely satisfied with this. So, what are you going to do about it?" I had finished watching a few things, but felt like I had nothing to say. It's not like I was in any hurry. I had never had any kind of upload schedule, and while I would occasionally gain or lose a subscriber here and there, it's not like I was worried that my small audience was somehow slipping. But the thing that nobody really prepares you for when it comes to making YouTube content is that you suddenly become very much aware of the fact that, as small an audience as you may have, they are waiting for you to say or do something. But it's tough to say or do anything when you feel like some aspect of your creative life has hit a bit of a wall. But inspiration is fickle, and almost as quickly as I was seemingly losing it, I had rapidly gained it back after watching Scum's Wish. When I had finished watching it, though, I realized that I couldn't approach it the same way that I was approaching all my other content beforehand. It wasn't inspiring me to think of it that way. What I wanted to talk about was seemingly something else rather than just the standard stock checklist of story, characters, animation, etc. I wanted to talk about it conceptually and spiritually, about the sheer split that the show was highlighting between the instant gratification of feeling good in the moment, but how it ultimately cannot make up for feeling completely empty. The script seemed to write itself, as only 3 hours later I had everything in the script already fully written and even edited. The recording also seemingly went off without a hitch, and to this day is the only thing that I have made that did not require a single retake. When I was done, I felt that same rush of sheer fun in the creative process and being able to share something that I was excited about. That video ended up becoming unexpectedly popular, and to this day is still the most viewed thing on my channel. I still have absolutely no idea why that's the case, nor why it had such reach in Southeast Asia, according to my analytics, though I suspect the thumbnail of the two main characters about to make out probably helped. I suppose there truly is something to be said for the horny anime audience. From then on, just about everything that I made since, and with a couple of exceptions, has been more about approaching media from different or road less traveled angles. Call of the Night with its handling of the societal other and vampiric form, Healer Girl and how it tries to make its healing through music concept something that it handles both within the text and outside the text, the Licorice Recoil copyright-stricken video about how the idea of moving on informs both the characters and its universe. Sometimes I would go do dives into the first episodes of shows to explain why I thought they worked so well in trying to establish whatever they were trying to establish. I allowed myself to get angry when talking about The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten. That continued through to June 2023, my second full year. I was having more fun than ever. Then, for the start of my third year, I wanted to expand the scope even more. I found myself wanting to talk about more obscure things, but still in that same manner that I had before. I talked about an obscure early 80s movie, The Door into Summer, and even made a video about 2 Hiroshima anime specials that are so obscure that most people I know hadn't even heard of them. And I also found out later that video wasn't made available on people's subscription pages after a subscriber tipped me off about that. I decided to start using my graduate school and university teaching skills to greater use by talking more about the behaviors and ways in which we consume media, and about the anime industry as a whole. I wanted to talk about problems and treat them with a seriousness that would make people want to possibly learn more for themselves, or at the very least, in the small way, become more aware of the business side of this media industry we regularly partake in. Sometimes that meant talking about something that was actively happening right now, like with the Yuri on Ice video, or the larger overarching trend with the Age of Delays video. And sometimes, just because I thought something happened to be funny, I would upload a very, very brief clip of something stupid. I don't think I could have anticipated when the year started just how much I would so thoroughly enjoy making videos even more than I already was. And truth be told, the Finding Kyoto Animation, Shiawase Nani, and the first Yuri manga videos are the content that I'm the proudest of, and even if they're not necessarily going to be rushing their way to the YouTube homepage or even necessarily be seen, and there are a couple of things in both that I would do over if I got a second chance at them, I don't regret for 1 second all the time and effort I spent into reading, writing, editing, and uploading those. The joy of creating made it all worthwhile. So here I am now, the 3rd year of the channel. Under normal circumstances, I would make a Q&A video in which people could ask me what they want and I would answer it, within reason. This time though, I felt it important to take a step back and think both about the good and the not so good about the channel, and about myself in relation to it. This whole entire video was actually prompted by a Discord message that I got literally the day that I'm recording this, out of the blue, the day before my 3-year anniversary. So thank you, Menja Quixis, for the inspiration. The question that they asked was simple. What is my target audience? And the thing is, sort of by virtue of what I do, I don't actually think that I have one. Aside from perhaps the general sense of what YouTube analytics tells me about age group and where they're from, I don't necessarily know a lot about who watches my stuff. A part of that is because I don't tend to get a lot of comments on my content, in no small part I'm sure due to low view counts, but it's also because the content that I make in some ways has just sort of been dipping my toes into a little bit of everything. It truly is just by compulsion of what the hell I want to talk about and what moves me on a particular day. Sometimes I'm talking about the history of something, sometimes I'm talking about a specific property, sometimes I'm making a bad AMV, and sometimes I'm fashioning myself as some kind of muckraker, reporting on woes, trials, and tribulations. If there has ever been an underlying thesis to whatever I make, it's that I simply talk about what I want to talk about, and if it makes people stop and think for even a brief moment, that's good enough for me. But I also can't pretend that I don't want a bigger audience. I don't think there's any person who makes any kind of content, regardless of what it is, that doesn't want their work to be more seen. People can say all they want about how they don't care what other people think, but apparently that only matters insofar as having a contrary opinion versus I want somebody to see my stuff. Sometimes that's just for the purposes of the creative act itself, and other times it's to make a living. Like I said before, I don't regret any of the time or energy that I've poured into making anything, even if I don't happen to think that it's great years down the line like with my older work. But that being said, I don't particularly have a brand or a clearly defined style other than weeb or nerd. I've always been very skeptical of the approach that some YouTubers take when they talk about a trending series or a hot button event in media and then proceed to milk it seemingly every chance they get. That apprehension was one of the reasons why I was actually quite reluctant to make the video on Yuri on Ice, since I wondered if I was guilty of doing the thing that I genuinely despised. That's why, when I approached it, I wanted to try tackling it and discussing it in a way that wasn't just woe is us, big react face, and talking about how God is dead and nothing is good anymore. With everything that I have made since I started the shift in my second year on YouTube, there have been two general rules that I have abided by that have kept video making and sharing consistently fun, which, ironically, are the things that stop me from building an audience faster. One is I would not talk about something if I did not have anything new or insightful to say. This actually allows me to address one question that I have gotten several times, which is, why don't I talk about some popular thing, like one of the major shonen, aside from that one video I made about One Piece or something? The reason why is simple. It's been done already. There are already entire channels and people devoted to stuff that's just like that. They've been doing it for years now, zeroing in intensely on specific characters, arcs, the art, and the universe. What could I possibly say about One Piece analytically that hasn't already been said by people even 4 months ago? What is there to be gained by saying, yes, One Piece is good, go read or watch it? I feel like all that would accomplish is me saying that I like One Piece, which, alright, cool, I guess. So do a lot of other people. What makes my statement so special? What makes my stance so particularly interesting? All that would really succeed in doing is creating validative content, me telling you something that you already believe to be true. It's akin to preaching to the choir, and when you're already doing that, you shouldn't be surprised if everyone wants you to join in the chorus. The second thing is that I would not keep an upload schedule. I don't know if this is the case for anybody else, but sometimes it is incredibly obvious when somebody is just making something because they feel like they have to make something versus wanting to make something. Even if it turns out that's not the case, the actual impression that it gives is what honestly prevents me from subscribing to a lot of people, regardless of what they make. People who make content every single day, uploading something every week to generate continuous interest, you get the idea. Making one video per month is probably the closest thing to a schedule that I have, and even then, I have no qualms not uploading, even if it costs me that ever-elusive retention. Balancing 3 different jobs to make rent and maintaining a social life will always take precedence, at least in my book. And quite frankly, I haven't said this on YouTube, but I have said it elsewhere. I have zero intentions of making YouTube my job. Get me to 1 million subs and maybe I'll consider it. The sad reality is that for something like the Love Chunibyo and Other Delusions, but it's Dekamori smiling and Nibutani horrified, and the Rest in Peace and Thank You Akira Toriyama videos, those were things that I made completely spur of the moment with basically no advanced preparation, and are, as of this moment, the 2nd and 5th most watched content on the channel respectively. The Yuri on Ice video script only took me about 2 hours to write and less time to create the video for, and is the 3rd most viewed thing on the channel. I suppose I've faced the reality that sometimes the, at least as it relates to my channel, low effort content is the stuff that ultimately reaches a wider audience, and I just don't know how many of those thousands of people make up the couple of hundred who watch my other things. I suppose you could say that trickle-down viewership has not been a thing, that I managed to get people to subscribe because of one video, but they don't take the time to watch anything else. I can't control what people watch, but I also can't pretend that it doesn't bother me, especially for the things that I really put the time and the effort into to make as solid as I possibly can. I don't think it would be crazy of me to say that only getting a couple of hundred views on something that's 47 minutes long is a little disappointing. Think of it this way, and here's why this is all so fascinating. Make the effort to create something that deliberately sets itself apart from a more commonly accepted approach, acknowledge that in the process, you're probably not going to get the recognition you're hoping for, and then lament the self-fulfilling prophecy of not getting the kind of recognition you were hoping for. Realize that your higher effort work just doesn't attract people like your lower effort work does. It's such an interesting push and pull between please like me and I'm not necessarily going to give you what you want to hear. It's tough to not feel jealous, and goodness knows I certainly have sometimes, of people who have apparently made a success for themselves despite saying stuff that you honestly think is just not that impressive. Is that hubris talking? An egotistical perspective of myself? Well, definitely, yes. I've mentioned this before in the anime critics and anti-popularity bias video, but it does take a bit of an ego and perhaps a dose of overly propped up self-confidence to say that you are worth listening to compared to everyone else. That ego is one of the things that keeps me going when I have a video script idea that ultimately doesn't pan out. For every finished video that makes its way to the channel, there are about 3 or 4 scripts that are dead because I fell out of love with the idea, or shelved because I just can't figure out a way to articulate something within them, or I've hit a wall of some kind. It's a rough feeling of dejection for sure. Considering the sheer volume of stuff that I put on AniList, I'm definitely a more voracious writer than I am a video maker. On several occasions, I've broken the character limit for comments because I wrote too much for a single post and had to break them into separate chunks. I evidently am inspired by media and want to talk about it, to the point where I'll write absurdly long essays to justify why a single episode of something is fantastic or absolutely horrible. But it's a bit of an ego bruise nonetheless when you have a script idea that just doesn't pan out, or a video that was the product of tons of hours that doesn't take. Then you open up YouTube and see that someone has made yet another video unscripted about the new Mushoku Tensei episode, even though they've made like 40 of them already, complaining about haters or ultimately repeating anime Reddit or Twitter. Sometimes it really sucks to look at that and wonder why some of that attention doesn't come your way. But the thing that I always find myself coming back to when a script idea doesn't pan out or a video doesn't do well and the occasional "what's the goddamn point" thought enters my head is that I just love the act of talking about media and making videos about it. There is a giddy kind of thrill that I get when I see that something is finished rendering, or when I come up with an idea that I think has some real merit to it. Like I said, I don't get comments that often, and despite my AniList frequency and the small following I have there, I rarely receive comments there either. But whether it's to no one or to 10,000 people, no chica, not like 0 to 1, it never stops being fun for me. And on the occasion that somebody does send me either a YouTube comment or a Discord DM saying that they think that I said something that made them intrigued, whether in agreement or disagreement, I can't help but be grateful that the fun that I had resonated with someone. Much like with my own university teaching, I don't always have the ability to control what my students take with them when they leave my classroom, both at the end of the day and at the end of the semester. But I suppose I could summarize it as something like this. If I got you to stop and think for just a moment, that's an audience worth trying to find. It may not be a big audience, but it's an audience that I hope can feel through my voice, writing, and videos just how happy, excited, and fun it is to be able to share something. I hope that answers your question, Menjaquixis. It's been 3 years, and though I may not be big, I'm not planning on going anywhere. In one form or another, I'll still be here. Whether on YouTube, AniList, Discord, or elsewhere, I don't see the fun of media discussion stopping anytime soon. So, here's to a new year of ZNoteTaku. I don't know what it's going to have in store for me, and I have no idea what ideas are going to come cooking up in my head. But I hope that, as I have my own fun, I can provide something worth your time and that you can have fun too. From the bottom of my heart, thank you.